Look, fans and critics may be split, but the bond we have is unbreakable. Here's a glass. What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about one of my most anticipated movies of the year, Glass, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. If you guys don't know how my reviews work, I like to talk about the film and then give you guys my score. Let's talk about Glass. So in Glass, a security guard, David Dunn, uses his supernatural abilities to track Kevin Wendell Crumb, a disturbed man who has 24 personalities. Why is Mr. Glass not in that description? Why? So a quick recap on my thoughts on the first two films. The reviews are up on my Patreon page right now, so you can check those out on there. But just to give you guys some thoughts, I love Unbreakable. It is my favorite M. Night film, and I really enjoyed Split. It was one of my better movies of that year. Both films are so good, and they each have their own distinct features, and that's why I was so pumped to see Glass. Like I said, this was in my top 5 most anticipated of the year. Over multiple superhero films and multiple really cool-looking original movies, Glass it intrigues me. I love these characters, all three of them, so much. So, of course, going into this film, I had my head held high, really looking forward to what was going to happen and how this trilogy was going to end. And here's what I want to say before I get into the review. Regardless of what I say here, I don't want you guys to take it the wrong way. I don't want you to look at me and say, oh, well, he hated the film. Clearly, he's a critic, and I'm not going to believe what the critics say because audiences versus critics. One, I'm just as much of an audience member as I am a critic. I'm an aspiring critic, but I also consider myself a massive fanboy of this entire franchise and a guy who roots for M. Night, and I want him to do well every single time. When he does wrong, I let people know he does wrong. Movies like The Last Airbender and After Earth, but when he does things right, like The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, I rave about him. He's a director that takes chances regardless of what you think about the majority of his films. He always takes a risk. Sometimes he gets too full of himself and it shows on screen, but other times he's calm, he's reserved, he holds back, and he doesn't give you what the story does not require. And going into Glass, I was hoping that he wouldn't make those same mistakes because this is a film with a very low budget. It's something he's apparently had in the back of his mind for so long, so I wanted the payoff to be strong here. And for me, the third act of the film, the final 30 to 40 minutes, was not just the weakest part of this movie, was the weakest part of the entire franchise, and it made me leave on such a sour note that I look back on the film as a whole very disappointed, even though there were things that I really loved about this movie. And I start with James McAvoy's performance. His performance is exquisite, and really, he gets most of the screen time. I get why the movie was called Glass in a way, but if we're going by screen time, here's James McAvoy, and then way down here is Samuel L. Jackson. It's not even close. It's really James McAvoy's movie, and because he's in so much of the film, I really dug a lot of what the movie gave us. His performance is magnificent. It's so good. He carries the film on his back at times, and the story that they set up in the beginning between he and David Dunn, that conflict there, everything going on. David Dunn has a sidekick. I'm not going to spoil who that is, but that entire story, it looked like it was going to turn out in everyone's favor. I was thinking to myself, I really like what they're doing right now. I didn't anticipate it to come this quickly, and then something happens about 30 minutes in that kind of cuts off the momentum and takes them to a certain place. And that place brought some very interesting ideas, things that intrigued me. I was getting curious about where this story was going to go, and then they start to build up this specific arc, this arc that I really wanted to see when the movie began, and I thought that's what I was going to get in the third act. And this movie, I'm going to say this right now, it's going to be so hard to talk about my issues without going into spoilers, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a spoiler review and put that out Friday night for you guys to see. That way you know exactly what quarrels I have with the ending, because I literally can't reveal anything to you guys right here because there's no way to talk about it without spoiling the movie. But I will say this, what they build up in the first 2 acts and really what they build up in the first 2 movies all comes to a head in the 3rd act, just not in the way that you're anticipating. And sometimes that's okay. When a director throws these curveballs, every now and then it works out. But from a narrative standpoint, there are some questions asked in that 3rd act, the final 30 minutes, that never get answered, some things that come out of nowhere, some character decisions that baffled me, and moments that I never thought we would see, moments that completely took what they had and just crunched it up into a little ball and tossed it towards the trash can. It threw away everything that they could have had at the end of this movie. And because I left the film on such a sour note, I was upset. And I see 3 different kinds of people walking out of this film. The first kind, like me, somebody who walks out, appreciated many elements of the movie, but the final act was really a disappointment. I see someone walking out of the movie wanting to stick it to the man, and regardless of what they think about the final act, they're gonna say, this is a 10 out of 10, this is the best movie I've seen all year. And then I see some people walking out and genuinely appreciating and understanding what M. Night was going for, because I will say this, M. Night, he was going for something in that 3rd act. I don't necessarily know what it is because it's so much to process right now. I can't tell you guys until I do my spoiler review, but he was going for something, and there are going to be people out there that appreciate it for what it was, because while it does some things that really frustrate you as a fan, it also doesn't end on a completely negative note, and because of that, people are going to find emotion in the final few moments of this film. For me, there were too many things that had happened and were happening that were just confusing and mind-boggling. 30 minutes into the movie, I'm looking around going, is this the movie that people are complaining about? It's not that bad. What I'm seeing is not upsetting. And then the farther we get, the more upset I got. There were so many things to love about this film, but when a movie ends on a bad note, it's a lot different than when it begins on a bad note, because when a movie starts off rough, it can get better, but when it ends rough, you walk out remembering what you just saw, and what I had just seen was super disappointing. I'm going to give this a 60% for right now because the ideas and the elements are there, but they just could not capitalize on the ideas presented in the first half of the film. Like I said, I just need to sleep on this. I will get back with you guys tomorrow and let you know my true thoughts, meaning full spoilers. Be sure to tune into that video if you care at this point. If you've not already, flipped the video off and said, Austin, you hate everything. I hate you. Just being honest, guys. Look, if anyone wanted to love this movie, it's me. So I'm just as disappointed in being disappointed as you are disappointed in me showing my disappointment. What? So thank you guys so much for watching this video. We have a lot of things coming out this weekend. I'm talking 2 series dropping on Netflix, 3 movies, and then 1 very special spoiler review about Glass. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for watching this video, supporting me, liking, all of the things that you do. And if you disliked it because you're upset with me, I don't care. You guys are the absolute best, and I'll catch you later.